Hello, everyone, and welcome to this free webinar on cold water and migraine management. My name is Hélène Caron, known as Coach Hélène, and I'm offering this as part of my services for my company, The Coolest Journey. So there's a reason why I'm offering this is because of my own background of having dealt with migraines for 20 years. And a miracle happened in my life about, I would say, almost 5 years ago now. And I'm now offering programs around that miracle that happened, which is cold water in my life and how basically I cured myself of migraines. But that's not the entire story. So if you don't mind, we're going to switch over here. And we're going to talk today about, oops, I'm just going to fix the lighting a little bit. We're going to talk today about migraine management, what migraines are, but migraine management in general with short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies, and how cold water fits in there and might be just the thing that you need to change your life. So here's the schedule for today's webinar. We're going to talk first about what are migraines, the causes and triggers. I'm going to talk a little bit about Migraine Canada. They were kind enough to share some resources with me, and I think they could really make a big difference in your strategy. We'll talk about a multi-pronged management strategy as well. And I'm going to give you an example of how to put that multi-pronged management strategy in place using what happened to me. And then we'll talk about the key takeaways and what's next in Q&A. So first of all, what are migraines? Well, first of all, there's still a lot of exploration and investigation into what are migraines, what causes migraines. So the science is evolving. And even in the last few years, they now treat migraines. The medical community treats migraines in a way that was different even when I was going through it 10 years ago. So this is pretty important. You always want to stay abreast of what is happening with migraine research and publications and talking to your doctors and your specialists about this. But basically, what are migraines? They're a complex neurological disease. Basically, it's a sensory processing disorder, and it involves misfiring of neurons causing an electrochemical reaction that sends signals of pain to the brain, the cortex, causing symptoms like, oops, sorry, oh, let's go. And I'm going to talk about the symptoms a little bit later. I switched some slides around just before coming on board. So let me give you some stats first about migraines. It affects about 14% of Canadians, which is 5 million people, which is a lot. The World Health Organization, WHO, classifies migraines as the third most common disease in the world, which affects 12 to 14% of people. So you can imagine how many billion people around the world are suffering from these migraines, or as we say, they are living with migraines. They are one of the most disabling health events that can happen to someone. With a migraine, someone can't keep functioning in daily life. Everything stops. So who does it affect? It affects women, men, and children. And you can see 25% women, 8% men, and 10% children. They believe more women do suffer from migraine attacks due to hormonal imbalances, especially during menstruations, which is, those are called menstrual migraines when there are fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone. Now, how do migraines present? There's actually different phases if you want. There's the ictal phase itself, which is the attack. Now, between the attacks, so let's say you have a migraine on a Monday, you have another one on Thursday, it's what we call interictal phase, where you might have some other symptoms. The symptoms of the first attack may not all be gone, and then they stay, and that's the interictal phase, and then you get another attack. So the attacks may include prodrome, aura, and postdrome. The prodrome, they happen 1 or 2 days before, so it's a little bit different than the aura. So it could be something like a mood change or some food cravings. Now, the aura, they're temporary neurological issues. They can be visual disturbances. They can be speech issues. So the true story here, my mother actually had migraines as well. I guess one could say they run in the family, but I didn't start to have migraines until about 1997, 1998. So they were triggered by stress. We'll talk about that later. But my mother had more menstrual migraines, and what she would get is she would get like zebra lines in her vision, and later on she would like see only from one eye or half and half vision from the eyes. So things like this happen quite frequently, but my issue is speech. And I didn't know about these temporary neurological symptoms, which are part of the aura, unless I would talk to someone, because if I was just working at home on a translation or something else without talking to someone, I didn't even know that this was a problem. So I would be switching words in a sentence or syllables, like a kitchen would become a chicken, and et cetera, et cetera. Postdrome is the final phase after the headache has subsided. Like it's like a hangover. Sorry, I'm trying to play a little bit here with the lighting. I don't feel like this is proper lighting, but let me just do one more thing here. That's a bit better. So we're talking about postdrome right now, which is the after the attack. That's the final phase. So once your migraine attack has been completed, the pain through the eye and through the back of the head, down the neck, and maybe into the back, that's done. You still have another maybe 24 hours to a few days to recover from this. It's a little bit like a hangover. And there still could be some issues with coordination, muscle imbalance, muscular, not imbalance, but you don't quite control where you are, proprioception issues, dizziness, vertigo, they could still be there. In fact, I'm notorious. I actually broke a toe after having a migraine because of this. So one really needs to be careful about the postdrome aspect. So what are some of the common migraine attack symptoms? The intense head pain, and you can see that illustration over here with the person having one eye on fire. It feels more like the pain comes shooting out of the eye and shooting at the back of the head. And it's just pretty intense. And it can go down the neck and into the back as well, even causing some limping if it's pretty strong. Other symptoms are nausea, vomiting, dizziness, sound, light, scent, motion sensitivities. So, you definitely, during a migraine attack like this, it's best to be in a dark, quiet room, which is no scent and nothing else is happening. So you can have neck, back pain, jaw pain, cognitive issues. I mean, if you're during an attack, probably lying down in the dark with some cold cloth on your eyes, brain fog, speech, inability to focus, mood changes. You can have sinus pain as well, issues with muscle control and coordination, and many more. A lot of people are different. In my case, it was that intense head pain, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, all the sensitivities, neck, back pain, cognitive issues, and I could not move. I was lying down in the dark. That was a migraine for me. So when I say that from between 2014 to 2020, I had over 350 migraines, that's what I had. Most of them were all 24 hours. And they're debilitating, right? They stop your life. So some causes and triggers for migraine. These are the top 10. Stress, big one. Changes or irregular sleep. So changes in your sleep patterns, your sleep architecture is not quite right. You can't get into your deep sleep. All of this will affect your resistance to migraines. Hormones is a huge one. Caffeine and alcohol, basically they affect hormones, then therefore affect migraine sensitivity. Barometric pressure changes, true story. I was not reacting to barometric pressure changes before. Then I started to drink green tea because green tea is supposed to be healthy. And next thing you know, I started to have pretty severe migraines, and that went on for about 2-3 months. I was having 2 or 3 a week. And one of my neighbors, a dear neighbor, Bev, at one point knocked at my door. She said, Hélène, there was just an article that was just published in the newspaper. At the time, it was newspaper. And she gave it to me and she said, I think this might be you. Aren't you getting migraines when there's the barometric pressure change? And I was thinking, no, that can't be it. This has never happened to me. And then I clued in, oh my goodness, I start to get more when I start to drink green tea. Stop drinking green tea and I stopped having migraines due to barometric change. So sometimes just one little thing can affect a whole chain of events. Diet is a top 10 as well. Histamines, MSG, caffeine, chocolate, dairy, artificial sweeteners, anything that is artificial preservatives, super sweet, that we're not supposed to really be eating. Dehydration accounts for 33 to 50% of all migraines, so that's a very big one. Light, especially fluorescent lights and some LEDs as well. Smells, perfumes, chemicals, gasoline, and medication overuse. Now, these are the top 10, but by no means are they the only ones. I'm going to be quickly showing you some of the resources from Migraine Canada. Migraine Canada is a registered charity here in Canada, and it is on the board of directors. They have a wide range of medical experts, and they have beautiful resources to share with the population. And who they are, so they're federally registered. They support the 5 million Canadians who live with migraines and headache disorders. The mission is to improve the lives of Canadians with migraine and other headache disorders through advocacy, awareness, education, research, and support. Now, they have a number of resources. They offer webinars that are free online with medical specialists. They have a fabulous community and they're all there to help. But most of all, what I would say about them is that they have something called the Migraine Tracker app. And you can scan this QR code to know more about Migraine Canada. But here is specifically the one for the Canadian Migraine Tracker. The number one thing to look for migraines is triggers. So in order to identify triggers, you have to be able to track patterns and a whole bunch of other things, right, from a historical point of view. And this is what this migraine tracker does. It's absolutely fabulous. I wish I had that when I was suffering from migraines. I only found out about Migraine Canada last year, so this is about 6 months ago, and they're an absolutely amazing organization. They have a number of resources that are free. I highly recommend that you take some time and look at what they have to offer. But their migraine tracker app is absolutely key in helping to identify triggers. And if you don't want to use an app, then you can use a migraine journal where you actually write by hand, or maybe you find something else that works better for you. But in order to identify the triggers, there has to be some record so that you can look at your patterns and then bring that to your medical team, the various doctors that you work with, family doctor, neurologist, migraine specialist, and it could be an endocrinologist as well, and go through that journal with them. So they say that there is no cure for migraine. However, we talk about management, and we can talk about a multi-pronged management strategy. So in terms of multi-pronged, there are different ways of looking at it. So I'm going to be presenting the way that I've been doing it, not just for migraines, but for any kind of illness or chronic pain, for example, or I've had to deal with other issues like osteoporosis. So I'm using the same matrix, but applied differently. So I hope that this is going to be helping you. And so, some key tips for identifying your triggers, because you can't have a management strategy without knowing what your triggers are. You can try and put some things in place, but really the identification of triggers really comes in first. Keeping a migraine journal or use the Migraine Canada Migraine Tracker app. And in order to develop your strategy, you have to kind of think about this continuum. The step number one for migraine is really prevention, because there's no cure for migraine. I mean, I know that I've got a different story, but there's no cure for migraine. Prevention is number one. And then your step number two here would be, if you have a migraine attack, what do? You can try and interrupt the pain. If you can't, you have to ride the pain. And while you're riding the pain, you probably want to figure out how to disengage the sympathetic nervous system. So the central nervous system is divided into the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Sympathetic is our fight or flight. So it's very active, if you want. Parasympathetic system is your rest and digest mode, which we should be in most of our days. And then at some points during the day, whoop, we rev up into sympathetic, then we calm down. Except in our society, usually we're something like 75 to 85% in sympathetic drive, which is another driver for migraines. Step three, when we're looking at the overall picture of migraines, after an attack, you want to make sure that for continuous treatment management strategy, you engage your parasympathetic nervous system. So it's learning how to put your foot on the brake, so that your car isn't going at 100 miles per hour all the time. You learn to put the brakes on during the day so that you can get better sleep, but also you can help to manage these migraine attacks. Stress management is huge. Strengthen your body. So exercise, resistance training, movement, stretching. It's very, very important, because if the muscles in the neck become weak, neck, shoulders, and back, then that also promotes further migraines. And the key thing is that we have to remap our pain or neuronal pathways. So they say that neurons that fire together wire together. So I'm going to say that again. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if your neuronal pathway in your brain was from point A to point B and it got diverted because of one migraine attack, chances are it'll still keep going after that to the normal path. But the more migraines you have, the more this new pathway is created, and then the more you're becoming more vulnerable. So you can be a subject to more migraines. Apologies, sometimes I think in French, so that was one of those moments. So basically, you need to reroute your neuronal pathways and reinforce the new pathways in order to try and decrease the number of migraines, and hopefully over time that pathway fades away and goes away. Number 4 is reset. I think it's important that we reset at regular times during the year, and maybe even if once a week, once a month, but we have to learn to reset. That's that foot on the brake. We take time to really let the dust settle. No stress, having a day maybe for ourselves, or we just go and walk in the woods for that whole day, or we swim. Whatever works for you, but it's a reset for the whole body and for the brain. And step 5 would be to reclaim your life, reclaim your dreams. Now, the 8 areas for migraine management strategy and intervention are as follows. Now, once again, this is the matrix that I use for any kind of illness that I've had, but you can apply this to anything, but really, this is these are the categories that I've identified through time, and they work well for me. So I'm sharing this so you can easily take this as is or adapt it to your needs. And you can use it for migraines, but you can also use it, as I mentioned before, for any kind of other condition. So the first one is nutritional, because we want to make sure that we have a strong gut-brain axis. Basically, what happens in the gut can affect the brain, and what happens in the brain will affect the gut as well. So if your gut's not happy, the brain's not happy. If the brain's not happy, the gut's not happy either. So that's the first area. Then supplement. By the way, they're not in any order. It's just that we eat more than we do other things, so I put that on top. Supplements is the second one. Pharma, therapies, exercise, movement, sleep, lifestyle, environmental remediation, and energy. So basically, if you were to take this matrix and you're thinking about your triggers, how would you address your trigger for nutrition? How would you address your trigger for supplements or pharma or therapies? If you have some visual issues, for example, and it's also important to say that in terms of intervention, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, but you also want to eliminate certain structural issues that could be creating migraines. So anything happening in the brain, so an MRI to rule out anything that could be going on, some blood work, some urine test, some hormone panel testing as well. There's a number of tests that can be done, including eye test. Make sure that you don't have any vision problems. You have the right prescription for your glasses. Is there also an issue with ear, nose, and throat? Sinuses, right? If you have some sinus infection, it will be giving some headaches that could be potentially going on as migraines. One thing that is common is called bruxism, which is when we clench our teeth and grind our teeth like this at night during our sleep. So going through some sleep studies and eliminating any kind of bruxism or something else we might be doing during our sleep, if it's poor sleep architecture, poor sleep pattern, poor sleep quality, quantity, and all of that, we want to be making sure that we're addressing those. So that's from, you have a couple of attacks, maybe more, you talk to your doctor, okay, you do all these investigations, and then what do? You identify your triggers, and we get to put a plan according to those 8 categories. Now, once again, migraines are a complex neurological disease that requires a multi-pronged strategy and lifestyle adjustments to address the triggers and exposure threshold. So maybe over time, that one trigger that's an automatic migraine, maybe over time you'll be able to expose yourself a little bit to it and still have no migraine, which makes life a little bit more bearable, right? And while managing sensory processing. So basically, migraines they involve all of the senses many, many times. So how do we quiet all of this? So in this beautiful little donut that I have here, you can see on the left, I've got short-term strategies. At the top, medium-term strategies. On the right, long-term strategies. And at the bottom is life, right? And at the full center, we have a supportive lifestyle and how to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. Those are the key things at the center of the donut. And then everything around it. So the short-term strategies is when there's a migraine attack. What can be done? Hydration and electrolytes, meds, external environment. Do I have to leave that environment, or is it safe for me? For example, you walk into a room, someone is wearing a very heavy cologne, or there's a Glade plug-in, or someone used some Febreze on the sofa and you're reacting to these scents. Or there's fluorescent lighting and one of the light is flashing. This is an example of what is in the external environment that could be causing a migraine. Step away from the environment. That's an easy one. But once the migraine attack has occurred and then you realize, ooh, this is in my environment, do you still have time to move away? Internal environment is more what is happening inside. Am I highly stressed right now? Do I need to do breath work? Do I need to do different things in order to try and mitigate this before it gets really, really bad? There's all sorts of indications that I've got over here for you. Cold is a big one. True story. I started to do the cold water swimming in September 2020. By November, I had told my husband, Adore, my lovely husband, Adore, I think this cold water is really making a huge difference in my migraines. They're not as intense, they're not as frequent, and they don't last as long. So the duration was also shortened. So I had told him, I'm giving you permission. If I have a migraine, you grab me, you put me in the car, you drive to Lake Ontario, and then you dump me in the lake, which by that time was probably between 6 and 10 degrees. So that happened. And then I would go there and I'm like, oh, I'm not complaining, but I'm in pain from the migraine. And I'm walking and getting into the water. And within 30 seconds, 60 seconds, everything would be gone. The migraine would be gone. I'd have my life again, interrupted right there. So that's pretty powerful. So that's short-term strategy. Medium-term strategy is, okay, we need to investigate. Is there anything structural going on? What can we look at from a pharmaceutical point of view and therapies, getting the medical consults done? Is my sleep okay? Am I hydrated? Do I have an anti-inflammation diet? So all of these things come together. Medium term is more for someone who's starting to have these attacks. And making sure that you're addressing all of these things. And then long-term management strategies would be, well, you've discussed your situation with your medical team and you've got a plan in terms of the pharma that you're going to be using for the management. Maybe it's treatment with some meds, maybe not. Maybe it's management through injections, maybe not. That's up to you and your medical team consults for you to figure out. So anti-inflammation diet is a big thing. Resistance training, aerobic activity, exposure therapy, sleep, gaze. Oh my goodness. The best way to rest your brain is through gazing. Migraines are it's like the brain is flooded, if you want. That's a term that we use for concussed brains, which applies here for migraines as well. If your vision isn't too affected, gazing is great. Gazing when you're not having an attack is even better. As you're gazing, that's learning to put the brakes onto that sympathetic drive and to engage the parasympathetic system. That rests and digest. This is going to be good. And the more we do this, the more our body learns to relax. And the more relaxed we are, the better we are at managing the stress. Nature therapy is a huge one as well. So for me, and I'm going to give this example once again, I always think walking in the woods, going in the water, and I've interviewed Mark Christie, who's a researcher from Cumbria University in the UK. You'll find the first interview on my podcast, which is The Coolest Journey. And I'm interviewing him soon for blue therapy. And that's going to be all the benefits about water. So health benefits about partaking in activities in the water, on the water, around the water. So I highly recommend that you tune in for that. The podcast is free as well. Environment remediation is also a big thing longer term because there are different measures that we can put in place to make sure our environment is safe for us so that it's not conducive to more migraine attacks. And then we have our dreams, right? We want these dreams to happen. Sometimes when we have a series of migraine attacks, we kind of forget about the future. We're just living in the present moment. It's only when we can gain some more space from distance from all of these migraines that we can start to say, okay, I have a life. If I get 3 migraines a year, 1 migraine a year, no migraine, maybe less migraines, right? How can you plan for your life? How can you enjoy your life? And maybe there is no planning. Maybe it's just about enjoying the moment, but there's a difference between enjoying the moment and being anxious in the moment, thinking that maybe we're going to have a migraine. There's a big difference. So I'm going to talk here about my journey, and I'm going to basically use that matrix that I showed you in order to explain to you how I've used it. So the first thing that I did was to identify my triggers. As I was identifying some of my triggers, I was putting certain things in place. So I quickly realized fluorescent lights were a problem. So I made sure that I had no more fluorescent lights at home. At that point in time, I was no longer working in the corporate environment. That's basically how my migraine started. I was working in a corporate environment, fluorescent lights all day long, computer, and high stress. Basically, that was a trifecta that was not good for me. Created these migraine situation. So basically, no more fluorescent lights. Stress, I had to figure out how to manage my stress better. I was always a little bit more anxious, I guess, than the average person, I have allergies. I could die of anaphylactic shock. So let's just say that my, base level of anxiety might be a slightly bit more elevated than the average person. So how do I deal with this stress? Breath work was one of the answers, but I'm just going to leave it there as a trigger. Computer work was another trigger. So I had to learn to take more pauses from computer work. Foods, preservatives, green tea. I had to make sure from a food point of view, no more gluten, soy, corn. I limited chocolate. Actually, I had no chocolate for a year. It didn't do anything, so I reintegrated it. But these are some things like that you can test for yourself to see, are you reacting to it? Is it a trigger, yes or no? So remove everything caffeine in your diet. If it does nothing, then maybe you reintegrate it. But something like caffeine, you have to remove it for a longer period of time. I was followed by another specialist in Burlington, Ontario, who deals with concussed brains and hormones. And he was telling me, you need to take it out for 1 year. Okay, fine. So I did it for 1 year and there was no change. So now I eat chocolate. But if I had reacted, I would not have put it back in. But he was saying it affects the hormones so deeply that it takes a long time for the hormones to recover. Motion, light, sound, and sense quickly became obvious that they were triggers for me. VOCs, volatile organic compounds, paint, carpet, furniture, car, like that new car smell is a no for me. Clothes, Febreze or Glade plugins, all of these fake chemical things. And now I'm finding that there's laundry detergents and what are those called? Those sheets that you put in the dryer, anti-static sheets, dryer sheets. They are a killer for me, but not just for me, for anyone who's got central sensitization syndrome or, they're just hypersensitive to smells. Walking in the street and someone is doing their laundry could trigger an attack for these people, me included. So it's a very touch and go situation. We almost need to be pressuring our manufacturers and our government more to make sure that whatever products are coming out on the market are not going to be influencing the health of someone in a bad way. Cigarette smoking, that's a trigger, common trigger. Personal hygiene products, soaps, shampoos, perfumes, creams, and deodorant. Clothes, I had to be really careful. Laundry detergent, I mentioned, but dyes, buying new clothes, sometimes it's a problem. I buy something new and then I wash it, the smell's not gone, I have to give it away, and more. So this was my list, but then what is your list? Maybe you figure out, okay, so stress is one, computer work is another, but you have to work, maybe you're working in a stressful situation and your job entails working at the computer. Maybe you take more breaks. Maybe you walk away every hour for 2 minutes, right? It's not the end of the world, but sometimes that's all we need for the vision, right? Shifting our eyes, moving the body, breathing some fresh air. Go outside for 30 seconds. So once you've got all of the triggers identified, or maybe they come and as time goes on, you add on, because I added on to this. Water was one of them. So you just keep adding on to your list and you keep track of that list. Then investigation. Like I mentioned, I had MRIs done. I had some dental studies done. Sleep studies, blood urine tests. I had some more scans. Everything came out. Nope, there's nothing. It's just migraines that you have. Okay, so now I knew that I just had to deal with the triggers. So it could be the same thing for you. After you've done some investigation and you want, like I was mentioning earlier on, research on migraines is shifting and we're discovering new things. So some of the investigations that I went through may not be what doctors would recommend right now, and some of them would maybe insist on further scanning or further things. I don't know. That's between you and your medical team. Your short-term strategies to deal with an attack. So I had my little tab in my Excel spreadsheet and I had my short-term strategies and all of this, and then my different matrix, right? So my short-term strategies was what am I going to do during an attack? When I was having a migraine attack, I couldn't even think. I couldn't remember. I was, so having it all in writing so that you can just pick up that piece of paper, really not on the phone, a piece of paper, and you go, okay, did I do a daily gratefulness practice? Believe it or not, it helps to shift things because you're separating yourself from the pain in your head. I'm grateful today that I got up and I'm out of bed, or I'm grateful that I did get up. It was a nice day. I'm grateful to be alive. And that's it. Pharma and supplements. That's the next deal. Next step for the short-term strategies. If you're being followed by a medical team and you've got some medication, migraine-specific meds, maybe you have to take it just on as you feel it coming. You take it, right? Anti-inflammatories, pills and creams. They worked quite nicely for me. I couldn't take the migraine-specific meds, and I'll talk about this later, but the anti-inflammatories, pills and creams, that worked a little bit for me. Magnesium and bubbly water, like Perrier or San Pellegrino, that was quite helpful, actually. I can't say that it was a full fix, but it would decrease the intensity of the migraine. Breath work. So I had to remind myself about the breath work. Square breath, physiological sigh, 4-7-8. Square breath is inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. That's a square breath. Physiological sigh is inhale, inhale, exhale. Inhale, inhale, exhale. That's 2 of them. Within 3, you're engaging your parasympathetic system. 4-7-8, you inhale for 4, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. So the breath work was helping because then it was engaging my brain doing something else and not focusing on the pain. Isolation in a quiet, dark space, I had to write it down for me to remember to do this. I mean, usually it was pretty obvious, but sometimes I was still walking and almost in denial that it was a migraine. Acceptance that it was a migraine and just letting go, just saying, this too shall pass. I just have to write this. Visualization, manifestation. So basically visualizing where is the pain, and then in my head, visualizing, having the pain it was shrinking, and then just dispersing and going away. Now that actually helped, except as soon as I would stop, the pain tended to come back. So then I would do it again and again and again. It helps to ride the pain. Some people have told me that it worked really well for them. It didn't work as well for me, but maybe it could work for you. Distanciation, I'm not sure that's the right term, but disassociation. Basically, you're in pain, in your mind, you go elsewhere. So I would be reliving some of my trips, some of my best moments, running at the time I used to do some trail running in the Dundas Valley. So I would see myself running that path, exactly what tree was where, how the ground was, feeling the air on my body, feeling my body moving, feeling my body heating or cooling down. So there's a lot that you can do here. That's a different kind of visualization, but it's definitely disassociation with the pain. The best one actually came September 2020 and October 2020 when I started to swim. I started to think, oh, well, let's start visualizing me swimming because I loved it. Swimming in Lake Ontario in the cold water. Thinking about the cold water and feeling the cold water in my mind actually helped to decrease the migraine. I kid you not. So the mind is a very powerful tool. When you do have an attack, you want to be very mindful of where it takes you. It's easy to fall into that downward spiral, that black hole. Other true story, a couple of times the pain was so intense, I was lying down in bed. I couldn't move anyway. It would take me half an hour just to turn from one side to the other, and I was pulling my hair. But the thought did come to me that, oh, if I could just walk over to the kitchen, take a knife and carve out the eyeball, maybe I could carve out the pain. And then I had to, no, that wouldn't work. So that's how bad the pain can be. That's not some place you want to be in your mind. So you have to acknowledge, yes, it's tough. Yes, it's pain. We have to acknowledge all of these feelings. But then what do? We're stuck in bed, can't move. Where do we go with our mind? That's our choice. Cold exposure. So I tried with a cold cloth on my eyes. I tried to put my hands and my feet in cold, icy waters. I tried a number of different things. It didn't work until I was swimming in Lake Ontario and then over here in Vancouver in saltwater. I think what it is that the whole body has to be cold. The cold showers didn't really work for me, but suspended in the water, and I'm happy, I'm a swimmer naturally, so maybe that's also, it comes in play. But to be fully immersed in the water, floating, meaning my nervous system is disengaged, all of a sudden the migraine would go. So the cold exposure is extremely powerful, but you have to figure out how it's going to work for you. Another true story, I was at a CPR requal because I'm a personal trainer and a fitness instructor certified, and every year I have to requal my CPR. And that one year I had to go. That was my last one, my last chance of doing my CPR. Otherwise I was losing my certification. I had a migraine. My husband had to take me, put me in the car, drop me off where the CPR course was taking place. And I just walked in and I just said to them, this is like my 25th time doing my CPR. I just need to sit in the corner. I'll follow and I'll try not to throw up. What happened is that there was a problem with the heater in the room. We were in the winter, so it's probably, we could see our breath. So I'm assuming it was probably 2 to 4 degrees in that room. We did a full CPR requal for, I think it was 3 hours in that room. Within about an hour, I started to come back to life. And that's when I realized, oh, cold is good for me. This is good. And I went from almost throwing up and with a cap, shades, noise canceling device, kind of a zombie, to being completely functional within an hour of being in that cold. I mean, we were all shaking because we were so cold. After that, I did try to go on the balcony of my unit to be exposed to the cold outside whenever I would have a migraine. It didn't work. I don't know why. Is it because maybe I needed to be there for an hour? But the cold water, it was instant. ER, going to the hospital or going to the urgent care center for rehydration, anti-nausea, and anti-inflammatories was my last resort. That's when I would go after 24 hours. Every time I would go, they would always tell me, don't wait 24 hours. Come within the first 3 to 5 hours. And I was telling them, but I don't know how long it's going to last. And I always have a headache. So here we are. So I'm not sure what to say about that one, but that's definitely something you'd want to talk about with your doctor. At what point during a migraine attack do you decide this is not good? You need to go to ER and you need to figure that out with your doctor. All right, so here we are in the matrix of how do we have this multi-pronged strategy? How do we put things together? Food and hydration was the first category. So for me, it was anti-inflammation foods. It had to be. So I went a vegan diet, whole foods, top 9 allergen free, because I'm okay with sesame seeds. So it's top 9 allergen free. I had to figure out that some of the produce I absolutely needed to have organic, like berries, celery, carrots, greens. Otherwise, I was starting to react in my gut, and that could very well influence the state of my brain health. Little to no preservatives, little to no sugar. Filtered water, because eventually I found out I was reacting to chlorine and fluoride. Now, not all municipalities have fluoride in their water. In BC, we have very few municipalities who use fluoride, but in Ontario, it's widespread. And so you have to kind of figure that out for yourself. So filtered water is a good way to start. No alcohol, no caffeine, no green tea. No alcohol at this point in my life, I was thinking, I'm on a vegan diet, no dairy. I'm French Canadian. I grew up on cheese and I used to make my own yogurt. And I was vegetarian for 20 years before becoming vegan. So no more dairy. And then I went on the top 10 allergen-free diet. So no more gluten, so no more bread. And now no alcohol, no more wine. That was my whole French identity right there. And I'm bringing this up because we often lose a part of our identity when we are in such pain over and over and over again. So it's really important that you ask yourself the questions: who are you? What do you stand for? When you have a migraine attack like this, is there anything that you can do to reinforce your identity? I was reinforcing my identity as an athlete, as someone who was moving, as someone who was trying to better the world through a vegan diet. And that made a huge difference to me. Maybe I wasn't able to do much that day, but I knew that I wasn't necessarily contributing to the suffering in the world. For me, that meant a lot. It could be completely different for you, and then that's up to you to figure out, how do you tie in your identity with what you're going through and make sure that you don't lose yourself. And this is a huge tip that I'm giving you right here about identity. I've had 20 years of suffering from migraines. I shouldn't say it that way. In terms of the terms that we want to use, we want to say person with migraine. So I was a person with migraine for over 20 years. And I've also had a number of other issues since, like long COVID, osteoporosis, broken bones. I haven't been able, a concussed brain, haven't been able to be as active as I usually am. And yet I am still myself. And I'm very grateful that somehow this all worked out. But when I think about how I built my resilience, it's because it's so tightly knit with my identity. So if that can help you, then I'm happy about that. What else here? Eating, drinking at regular times. Huge difference, right? So that we're not dehydrated and that our hormones don't also go on a roller coaster ride. Avoiding cross-contamination of soy, gluten, corn, and dairy. For me, that made a big deal. Maybe for you, it's not that important, but maybe it could be avoiding cross-contamination of fluorescent lights, VOCs, or whatever else that you're highly sensitive to. I also start to do a daily intake of fresh ginger and of greens and cruciferous vegetables, something like broccoli or kale or something like that. That started to rebuild my system as well. So that was my strategy for food and hydration. My strategy for supplements was vitamin D, omega-3, B complex, magnesium, and I also had some algae supplements and a couple of other things. But that's what I tried. Did it really work for me? The magnesium helped, the algae for sure. The omega-3, I think, helped. The vitamin D did help with my sleep. So B complex, they say, helps with migraine. These are things that you have to investigate and see for yourself. But basically, in your matrix, under supplements, what is it that you put down? That's up to you. Pharma. So that's one thing that you would be working out with your medical team. So I tried 4 to 5 different medications for treating attacks like Maxalt, right? And so Maxalt was one of them. I had a few issues with Maxalt. It worked for the first 2 wafers that I took. After that, it didn't. And at $60 to $100 per wafer and not working anymore, it just wasn't worth it for me. And I started to have some side effects as well. Doctors do cite that many people don't take meds because of side effects. So that's why it's so important to have a matrix like this to identify various strategies to deal with migraines. Anti-inflammatories, up to a certain point, did work for me. These are the ones that work the most. Live Relief was a cream that I found completely by fluke. So that's another thing, keeping your mind open to potential therapies that could work for you, even if you think you've tried it all. That Live Relief cream was exactly that. It works beautifully for me, but it doesn't work in the same way for everybody. And the Klamath Lake blue-green algae, that worked for me as well. I can't say that it eliminated the migraines, but it greatly decreased the intensity and the duration. The therapies that I tried a lot of things through the years. I did 3 or 4 years of injection therapy, initially going every week, and I think at the end I was there every second or third week. And in the end, when they told me that the last resort was Botox, I had to say no to that because I have so many sensitivities. I was concerned I was going to react. Of course, that's an individual personal decision, but if it is offered to you, just know that do your research and make the right decision for you, because it does work for a lot of people. This was done at the pain clinic, and there are a number of pain clinics throughout Canada that can help you deal with that. I also tried acupuncture, massage, reflexology, chiropractic maneuvers, osteopath who would do cranial sacral maneuvers on me, physiotherapy. I had a pelvic floor a physiotherapist that helped a lot because she was also working on my gut. So that helped the gut-brain axis. Oxygen also helped a little bit. I can't say it was a big help, but basically I was using it as prophylactic, as a preventative measure. And there's not really a lot of studies on this. They were looking, the doctor I was with at the time, the specialist was telling me, oh, oxygen doesn't necessarily work during an attack. And I kept telling them, but I'm looking for published research about oxygen helping as a preventative measure. If I do oxygen once every 2 days, could it help with migraine frequency? No answer there. But I could tell you this, HBOT came later. I ended up with long COVID in 2022. And in 2023, I started HBOT therapy. So hyperbaric oxygen therapy, that's when you go into a little chamber and the pressure increases. It would be like you going underwater. And that basically forces the oxygen into your tissues. It's an old physics law that as the pressure increases, the oxygen is readily absorbed in various tissues. And that could make a difference as well. I was looking at the research today. There's more and more research coming out about hyperbaric chamber therapy and migraines and how it can help during a migraine, but they're trying to figure out if it helps as a preventative measure. In Canada, the issue is that HBOTs are very expensive. HBOT sessions are very expensive. They tend to be done in a hard shell chamber. There are a couple of manufacturers in Canada who sell soft wall chambers, so soft wall HBOT. But Health Canada made that illegal in 2019, I believe, to purchase and sell them to Canadians, mostly because CSA does not have a category to test them. So it's a legislation issue or regulatory issue between Health Canada and CSA, and a manufacturer like Oxynova, top-notch HBOT chamber, not to name them, well, they had to turn to the US market and international market after that. But basically, if you can get your hands on an HBOT chamber, or you have a lab or a clinic around you that offers them, it could be interesting either to stop a migraine or as a trial for preventative. I tried infrared sauna as well. Well, the heat didn't prove to be too good for me. I could be relaxing a little bit more in the sauna from the tension, but then as soon as I would step out, it would hit me even stronger. I tried ozone steam sauna as well. Didn't work too well either because of the heat. PEMF was helpful, pulse electromagnetic field therapy. It's a mat on that you lie down on, and it creates an electromagnetic field that is similar to the Earth. So it's low intensity, low frequency. So it's not, the frequency is less than a microwave or a cell phone. That helped me. I would think the way I explain it to people is that I was pretty bad. And then I got a little bit better, but that was the extent of the PEMF. It was enough to take me out of a really bad spot. And so that I could try and think and look at my options. Nature therapy is walking in the forest. That was very, very helpful. So just a quick time check. It's 6 o'clock. We have until 6:30. I'm going to be presenting for another 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have some Q&A. As part of your matrix, once again, exercise and movement. So what could you be doing to make sure that you're migraine proofing yourself, right? So what I had on my list was trail running, swimming, yoga, dancing, breath work, resistance training, spin, hiking, and whatever else gave me joy that I like moving. That for me was pretty much essential. But the breath work is the key one here. And the swimming, because then I was suspended and disengaging the nervous system. Sleep. This is a big one. Sleep in terms of hygiene. At what time do you go to bed? At what time do you get up? Do you have a little bedtime routine? Do you take an hour before you go to bed? Or are you like foot into the, the accelerator pedal and 100 miles per hour all the way until 10 o'clock, then you go to bed and you expect to sleep? Your sympathetic system is in overdrive here. Learning to put that brake on, like I was mentioning before, with the parasympathetic system is really important. And that's part of sleep hygiene, even if you're taking breaks during the day. The quality of the sleep, the quantity of the sleep, you can get that observed in a sleep lab study. So that's one way of doing it. We have a lot of these wearables nowadays. Not quite the same. It's not the same as a full PSG study. PSG is polysomnography, and that's what you get when you go to sleep lab. What we get from a watch or wearable, it's okay, but you could be getting some false positives or false negatives. So if you do have migraine attacks, it could be a very good idea to go and ask your doctor to ask for a sleep study in a lab. Your environment. And by the way, I did 2 sleep studies, and they were inconclusive, and we had to deal with, it's called sleep architecture, is how much time do you spend in each zone. And the second time was better, because the first time you go to a sleep lab, if you go to the same sleep lab the second time, the first time it's like the night at the hotel, so you could be getting some false readings. The second one is better. So the environment, what kind of bed and mattress do you have? Are they conducive for good sleep, or are you going to wake up and you're going to feel sore because you've got an old mattress, or maybe your mattress has, that's something else I'm going to talk about, but if your mattress has metal coils and you are electromagnetic field sensitive, these coils are basically transmitting some of these electromagnetic fields around you. The sheets, are they washed every week? Are they what kind of fabric are they? Is it natural fabric? Or what do you have a scent on it? Do you have an air purifier in the room? Your bedroom is a sacred area, so you have to make sure that is going to be protecting you as best as possible. So having an air purifier in that room is actually a really good idea, so that you have some fresher air. Is it dark enough? Is it quiet? Is the room temperature the right one for sleeping? Lifestyle, once again, part of the matrix, right? Do you have social activities with family and friends? Do you have positive relationships? That's what I had on mine, right? I was doing my PhD at the time. That was very important for me to have in there. Volunteering with my community, ability to take breaks during the day to reset. So I actually had quit my corporate job at that point to go back to school, in part so that I could be taking breaks and control my schedule, so that I could take breaks in my day. So I was taking 1 to 2 18-minute naps, one in the morning and one, so basically one around 10:30 and the other one around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was enough for me to reset my energy units and my inner battery, if we want. Nature therapy, going for a walk out in the woods, gazing, looking at some mountains, right? Or at some water. Stress management, I had to put and prioritize stress management, and other things too. Environmental remediation. So this is once again on my list, right? VOCs. I had to make sure I had no VOCs in my home. My home had to be safe. What cleaning products were we using? Were they okay for me? Were they organic? Were they as minimal as possible? Personal hygiene products. What soap was I using? Shampoo, what cream, all of these things. Clothing, was my clothing going to be okay? How was I disinfecting my home? I ended up getting a steam cleaner. That made a big difference. I had to limit my exposure. And when I say limit, it's like limited or no exposure to external environmental triggers like fluorescent lights and VOCs. Still an issue today, but at least my threshold has been improved. Electromagnetic fields, EMF, such a hot topic. We are surrounded more and more by these EMFs that are harmful to our health. And I had to do some EMF remediation at home. There's dirty electricity. There was electricity, EMFs from some light fixtures that we had. We had to do a lot of remediation. It helped. Not everyone is sensitive to that point, but if you are, that's something to keep in mind. Magda Havas, Dr. Magda Havas is the world-renowned scientist behind most of the research on harmful EMFs. And she is in Ontario. So if you think that EMF is a problem for you, look into Magda Havas, Havas, into her research. Energy work. So that was, I think, my last one in my matrix. So energy, I figured PEMF is in there, breath work, because it's inner energy, but I also tried various neuromodulation devices for my migraines. Now there is one that can get implanted in some, it basically helps to modulate the vagus nerve, which they think would help with the brain and gut axis. I was never at that point, and I know that there are advances being done to say maybe we don't need to implant them anymore. So that's something for you to look into if that's where you are in your journey. I tried tapping, right? Freedom tapping. Didn't quite work for me, but it could work for other people. Nature therapy, blue and green therapy, and identifying what gives me energy and ensuring that I refill my energy units multiple times per day. That was very helpful because that's a way to engage that brake pedal, to engage that parasympathetic system and disengage the sympathetic system. And then the miracle happened. When I added cold open water swimming to my matrix of strategies, which could seem very overwhelming, but we all do this. We all have our little ways of figuring out our lives and we work all around this, right? But when I added cold open water swimming, something like what you see behind me, it was pretty much immediate. Within 3 to 5 sessions or outings, I could tell this was going to be a major shift for me. So I started to do it daily October 1st, but I was already in the water mid-September. And I started with 8 to 10 minutes because the water was about 17 degrees, I think. And yeah, 12 to 14 minutes in the water. And then I was putting my face in because I was swimming. And by December, at about 4-degree water, all of my migraines were almost gone. So basically intensity, duration, frequency, way down. I mean, we're talking about significantly, but I would say almost miraculously significantly. I had one migraine on December 26th because we were on a Zoom call with our families, Christmas during COVID, right? And I was a bad migraine. And the next day, my husband took me to the lake, dumped me into the lake, and the migraine almost went away. That was the one time that the migraine was resistant to the cold. After that, no migraine until we moved to BC on May 4th, 2021. There's a lot of things happening. I hadn't been eating my food, and we had sold a place, moving into an apartment over here in Vancouver. So I had a migraine on that day, but I did not throw up. It only lasted about 6 hours. And that was it. And I don't even have headaches anymore. I used to walk around with a constant headache. So this cold open water swimming has completely changed my life and has been a miracle for me. And to think that I can now live my life and look forward to things instead of having to constantly be almost looking over my shoulder, not plan too many things. I don't know if I can make this. I don't know if I can commit to this. It's a huge game changer. So now I call this my post-migraine era. I'm living the life. If I'm out of bed, like I'm winning the day, right? And I know that if you're listening to this and you've had migraine attacks and you've had migraine attacks for a while, you know exactly what I mean. Like it took me 3 to 4 years of a transition period to finally say, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to have migraines. I have increased confidence and trust that my body and my mind won't fail me. And mostly that if ever it happens again, I have the tools to fall back on and get rid of it again. My thresholds are also higher, so I can withstand some of the, or lower, depending on how you want to see it. But the triggers aren't as strong on me as they used to be. Some of them, the scents are pretty bad, but you know, fluorescent lighting, I can be under much more now, and I can work at the computer and be on Zoom, which I couldn't do before. My relationship to time has been shifting, so I can plan for the future. I couldn't plan for the future before. And I'm swimming competitively in open water now. And that's not something I thought I was going to be able to do again. And really to be able to do this and share all of this so that hopefully my experience of dealing with my pain and getting rid of it can help someone else deal with their pain and get rid of the pain. That is big for me. So the takeaways, the main ones, you're the CEO of your own health. You do your research, you decide what you want to do, and you create your own matrix and how you want to address this short-term, medium-term, long-term strategy, and addressing those 8, for me, was 8 core areas. Maybe you've got more, or maybe you've got less. Keep an open mind, but don't fall prey to snake oil healers. I've fallen prey a few times, but keep an open mind, because something like that liver relief cream that someone told me, yeah, just try it. And I tried it. It was, oh my God, it helps with my pain. If I can control my chronic pain, I can control my migraines. Focus on anti-inflammation. That would be a big thing that I want you to remember from today's presentation. Cold is anti-inflammatory. When I put my face in the water, right, it cools down the brain. So basically it's like icing my brain. I'm doing an anti-inflammation therapy on my brain. So focus on anti-inflammation, and try maybe putting everything in an Excel spreadsheet to track your 8 areas of intervention, or maybe you'll identify different things. And then cold exposure could be the miracle that you've been waiting for. Maybe it'll just decrease the amount of migraines that you have, but for me, it was definitely a miracle. And I continue to swim daily, to expose myself daily to cold, because I'm afraid these migraines are going to come back. So I want to say thank you to all of you who were here today. And what I'm going to do now, I've got a special offer. I mentioned this at the beginning. I've got a 12-week course that I have. I'm just going to quickly talk about it, and then we'll move on to Q&A. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you for attending, and please stand by.